You would expect NFL stars to be some of the richest people in sports, and even though that's true, some of these stars go completely broke, and there's a reason behind that. Starting with Tiki Barber. The 47-year-old has had one hell of a career, starting from the bottom and literally becoming the top running back for the Giants. He has had a lot of success in his football career, all thanks to his devotion to the game and skill set. And as you know, when a player is that good at playing a sport, they manage to make a pretty handsome living from it too. And that's exactly what Tiki did. Over the course of his football career, he managed to earn quite a bit. Like many others in the NFL, after he retired from football, he got a job at NBC as a sports analyst. And even from this job, he was making quite a handsome living. Things were going pretty good for him professionally, but his personal life? Yeah, well, he was making some bad decisions. He left his wife to marry an intern with whom he had an affair. What a cliche. Not only did he lose his wife for this, he also lost his job at NBC as a morality clause was part of his contract. And if you think that was bad, wait till you hear about this Walter Camp Award winner, Raghib Ismail. He was an iconic player of his time. You might not have watched his games, but ask your dad, and he'll tell you all about why he was called Rocket Ismail. Unfortunately, his luck in his career was short-lived. Well, financially at least. Raghib played in the Canadian Football League for around 2 years before moving on to performing in the NFL on different teams. He did this for around 10 years of his career, and he was handsomely paid for it all too. It's estimated that he earned around $20 million over his career of around 13 years. Yup, I heard that gasp you just let out. So you must be wondering now, how did he lose all his money and go broke? Well, apparently his downfall started when he decided to change his career path. After he retired, instead of staying in the sport how most NFL players do, Raghib decided it was time for him to finally step into the world of business and build his empire. In the start, he was doing pretty well. Nothing too good, nothing too bad. But it started going downhill when he started to make some big investments in different places. And, well, that was it. Most of these investments were bad and ended up costing him almost all of his life savings. Talking about running out of savings, that's also what happened to this former quarterback, Mark Brunell. A successful football career, fame, and a lot of money. Quarterback Mark Brunell had it all. Well, that is, until he didn't. Oh, and when I said a lot of money, I mean a lot. Just around $50 million from his salary and contracts alone. Everything was going pretty well for him, in his professional life at least. But you know, as it always goes, after NFL players retire, it gets harder for them. But oh honey, no one thought it would get this bad. Well, it's all because Mark made some bad choices. You see, he invested a huge amount of his savings into real estate investments in Michigan, and also a fast food chain there named Whataburger. Unfortunately for him, both these places proved to be terrible places for investment. He didn't get much back from them and ended up going broke soon after that. Not only that, in 2010, he ended up filing for bankruptcy. Ouch. From the sky straight to the ground reminds me of what happened to a certain All-American Luther Ellis, defensive tackle for the Detroit Lions and then the Denver Broncos, and one hell of a player. I mean, watching him on the field was honestly the best thing. He's retired now, but ask your dad about him and you'll know just how great of a player he was. And obviously, with all that skill and good playing, a ton of fame and even more money. Bling bling. Well, again, this isn't a happy story about how he earned so much doing what he loved. It's about how he lost all of it. And honestly, I want you guys to guess how he would have lost his money. There's been a theme of how these players lose their savings, and it's so repetitive. If you guessed, he tried to become a business investor, or he invested all his money somewhere stupid. You're absolutely right. That's exactly what he did, and that's exactly what started his financial downfall. After a bunch of pretty big investments that went bad, Luther ended up basically broke. So not even a decade after his retirement from football, he went from being one of the richest players in the NFL to just another guy fighting to make ends meet. How tragic. Maybe just as tragic as what happened to a legendary 2001 NFL draft pick, Travis Henry. Oh wow. Okay, so Travis, the man had some problems, and that's an understatement. And no, I'm not talking about his football career. That was pretty much flawless, and he was really successful. In fact, one of the most famous stars of his time in the sport, and obviously making a ton of money along with enjoying all that success and fame, but undoubtedly for him, all of this success and financial prosperity was short-lived. His downfall, you could say, started when he was released from the NFL. Yep, he didn't retire, he was released. Why? Well, he failed drug tests a little too many times to be kept in. So you can already guess what probably left him broke. It was the drugs, obviously. In 2008, he was busted for trafficking cocaine as well. Oh, and get this, along with having a drug problem, he also apparently needs a lesson or two on family planning because, guess what? He has around 11 children with 10 different women. Yeah, you heard that right. 11 children. He was briefly sent to prison because he couldn't afford to pay for child support. So it was obvious that his finances weren't doing the best either. Now, you already know why most of these athletes went bankrupt, but there must be a deeper reason too, right? I see a common theme with all these players, and it's bad planning. Okay, I know, sounds kinda stupid to say that a professional sportsman would have bad insight. But there's a theme in all these stories of professional athletes going broke, and we can't just ignore it. A lot of these players, after they retire, think the best way to make money is to invest in the biggest thing they can find and wait for it to give them their fruit. But unfortunately, that's not how it works. A lot of things that these players invest in aren't well thought out and end up costing them all their life savings. So, maybe the reason behind all these players going broke is their bad future planning, and their lack of ability to bounce back after hitting rock bottom. Sure, some players have done that, but they still went ahead and made some pretty bad financial decisions that cost them billions of dollars. Another reason for them going broke could be them changing their career paths completely and going into completely new things, where they have absolutely no experience, like real estate and fast food chains. And that was all about the NFL players that went completely broke and how these professional athletes managed to go bankrupt.